And we're back. Great Beyond. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year,
Joey.
Happy birthday to Ben. Happy birthday to Sam. A lot to celebrate. Most of all, to celebrate that this is a new, maybe-ish podcast. We've teamed up with Osiris to bring you a more diligent, more professional, more responsible Great Beyond that schedules episodes ahead of time, doesn't lose audio the night before we're supposed to drop episodes, and so far it's going great.
It's going fantastic.
Going as planned, as scheduled.
I look at things differently than these other two, and I wouldn't say that, but we need to make ad revenue, so things are going excellent. I cannot wait for the new season of The Great Beyond.
On a more serious note, I've been a huge fan of Osiris for many years.
Oh yeah,
as has Joey.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
From Under the Scales to what else?
Freak Flag Flying with David Crosby and Steve Silverman was one of my favorites while I was working. I have flashbacks to those interviews in the office. And then Plus One with Eric Krasno got me through the pandemic. I mentioned with, surprise, by the title of the episode, we're going to interview RJ, but I mentioned this, that during the pandemic, I really missed going to shows, talking to people on lot about music, shows you were going to, shows you just went to, and without that, Osiris really filled that void of talking about music, so why not listen to just more educated, more insightful people than me talk about music?
It's good to know that if Joey has flashbacks there to interviews, because Bruce and I are struggling in our seats here, but, big shout out, obviously, to Osiris for welcoming us to their family. It's going to be beneficial for all of us to be involved. Shout out to Joey for really corralling Bruce and I into a single space, which can be dangerous for everyone around, and making this thing happen as we launch into 2022.
Yeah, and I just want to add for our listeners, I also have flashbacks. I think I was left out of that, but I do. It's a problem. I have many.
We're from Bingo Tour Set Break to New York, recording live. We are here on Osiris, and I can't promise we won't let you down, but we'll certainly be here. So to kick off our inaugural episode with at Osiris, obviously we spoke to the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. RJB, Mr. Osiris himself. We dug into everything that's really happened since he interviewed Rick and Peter at the Brooklyn Podcast Festival in 2020.
Yep.
We're going to get there. For now, let's check out the news.
Right on.
So, 2 nights, 6 sets, Radio City Music Hall. Goose has graduated to a new level of New York City music venues, and this time maybe they won't kick me and Bruce out, but they have warned us ahead of times that there will be 3 sets, so Bruce doesn't get to spoil the surprise for everyone when Coach texts him and he leaks it.
Oh. I didn't think that a murder was going to be witnessed on this podcast. But the next podcast is going to be presented by Joey and I for Osiris and Sunset Lake. I guess I'm going to need more CBD to respond less aggressively to Craig next time. Besides that, one of the themes to this episode is going to be kind of going back in time and not recounting things that I have done in the past, but more or less recounting where the bands come from. And one of the things about these Radio City Music Hall sets is that I guess 2 of them are going to be acoustic, maybe 1.
So we like acoustic here at the Great Beyond Podcast, personally. By we, I mean me. Those acoustic sets at T's house, Fire Flames.
That was like the first thing during the pandemic with the Live From Out There stuff that they started doing, that I was like, oh, this is like completely different. Ben with brushes.
Well, I mean, that was back when, I thought COVID could come out of the toilet.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on there.
Deathly afraid.
That's actually how I got COVID the first time.
Yeah. You actually hadn't left your bathroom in months.
Well, we don't want to get taken off Spotify for misinformation, so let's keep that on the
No, it's fine. If Joe Rogan can do it, we can. Get your Sunset Lake CBD. I'm telling you, like, COVID-free ever since we've been.
I like
Osiris.
acoustic sets too. So I don't again. I'm getting, everybody's attacking me, but I love acoustic sets. I love to just roll up in a sleeping bag, really warm. Let's settle my head down on a down pillow. I try to go to sleep during them, and I think I'm going to have a nice time napping at Radio City before they get into the electric. But I really can't wait. And honestly, I haven't been to Radio City for a show. I know that's amazing because you would have thought I've been everywhere. But no, Radio City, I'm really excited to see that for the first time, and especially with the guys headlining. It's going to be really, really cool.
Let's talk about the history of Goose in New York, New York. 4/18/19 was Mercury Lounge. That was an epic show.
Yeah, we got a little sit-in from somebody.
Got a little sit-in from a guy named Greg Knight. A little less mustache, a lot more attitude.
Was that the start of that 3-night run, or did they play Boston?
Yeah.
Start of a 3-night run. So it was Mercury Lounge 4/18, Down the Road Brewery in Everett, Massachusetts 4/19, where we got an extended sit-in from Sean Cronin, and then 4/20 at the Acoustic in Bridgeport.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some New York shows that precede Mercury. The guys played what was called a Tuesday night jam jar at Brooklyn Bowl. I think this was back in 2017. They were first of 3. They opened for Space Carnival and another band. I'm sorry, I don't remember now. But
was it Mr. F?
I don't think it was Mr. F.
Okay.
It was but it was a Tuesday night, and so the one thing I do remember about this show is I actually rode with Coach's wife to the show, Miss Bonnie Lombardi. Hello, Bon.
Hi, Bon.
Also, Rick's mom in Shenanigans Nightclub.
Also, Rick's mom in Shenanigans Nightclub. Yep, multi-talented. And somehow leaving Coach's house, Bonnie crashed into my car. But we had the music up loud and
Not surprised.
didn't realize it happened. So went, crushed the jam jar, came back, and had a big dent in the car.
I've crashed into a lot of cars and I realized that it happens. It's can be a common occurrence.
No, it doesn't. What are you talking?
Doesn't happen.
It happens to me often. Countless times over the years. Anyway.
Built for tough, as they say. But New York City, like hallowed ground, obviously in the music world. The jam world, like obviously, the torchbearers are king, right? They play MSG every year, but there's a dedicated jam community, the Freaks List, of course, shout out. But it's a very tough nut to crack for bands that are not from here. And so, when we think about everything that's happened in the past few years, not even 3 years ago, these guys were not selling out Mercury Lounge, 250 cap room. So we follow up with Music Hall of Williamsburg, 12520.
Bowery showed before that too.
Yeah.
24th.
Yeah, Bowery Ballroom, where the air conditioning clearly broke.
Dude, that was
I lost 5 pounds in there.
That was one of the most miserable. I mean, besides the music was obviously fantastic, but as far as space and claustrophobia,
The Lovely Day was
Lovely Day.
Yeah.
Wasn't that at Williamsburg?
No, that was Bowery.
Bowery.
That was the
right.
debut
That was
of that.
Bowery was
Yeah.
the tapes that that got destroyed or
Yeah,
corrupted or whatever. But
that was my first show, and I
It's
don't
like
have
this
the
Lovely
audio.
Day slaps, so Peter needs to eat more fried food and have a little bit more, Sorry, that's a joke for me.
Right, okay, so
but anyway,
yeah,
I had no idea what I was
doing.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Mhm.
But New York brought it out of them, and then of course, Top of the Rock for Goosemas 2020. Incredible, no audience there except for me, Bruce, Kathleen, a few others. But incredible show. And then we had 2 nights at Bruce's favorite venue, Terminal 5.
Whoa, yeah, not my favorite venue. You know what, though? Those shows ripped, and venue aside, I think a lot of people had fun. It was definitely full to the hill.
Oh, yeah.
Both nights, and I think even the surprise 3-set show that they did on Saturday, a lot of people managed to hang around for that. I know a lot of people couldn't, but those were great shows, and I mean, they really came with it. That 3-set show, God, I just was stunned how each set was really excellent and held up the energy too. Each set had a good flow on its own. The show flowed well. Really hard to do for a long show like that. And so, I mean, it's cool because you get to expect big things from Radio City coming this summer.
Absolutely. And like Greg and Bruce mentioned on the live stream, like at least my first time at Radio City, I think since I was a little kid, I don't even remember the show I saw then, but was Trey, the alternative tab that played there.
Yeah, right.
And the funniest thing, and I think you guys mentioned it, was seeing the Nitrous Mafia outside of Radio City and a bunch of confused tourists.
So I can't wait to get back to Radio City so everyone can actually recognize me as Greg Knight and not Desron Douglas. But let's talk about the new single.
Yeah.
Born, a source of great contention in El Goose. Bruce, what do you think?
Well, I think we don't go by El Goose for much. No, I love you. Yeah, I guess there was, I mean, you know what? The contention honestly wasn't that bad. There was a big thread that day, and we talked about it on our live episode last, Greg and I, but there was a big thread, and I had a lot of good discussion. People were going back and forth very respectfully. Not everybody loved it. It's a single, you know, and it's, you know, it was obviously cut as a single to some people, so they might be hearing something that they think might be coming after it. I don't know. But also...
Oh, by the way.
Yeah, we don't know. But also, I mean, it's just a matter of this is something that they chose to present as a single to people right away, and that could have been for any reason. We're not under the same system that is the pop music industry where, you know, you're writing 2 singles for a specific album. You know what you're going to release as a single. You know these are bangers, blah, blah, blah. You're going to release them. You know, Goose takes a different approach to all of this and to all of their new music releases we've seen from the last year with Shenanigans. So I think it's just the way they wanted to introduce people. Sometimes I think they like to hear what people, you know, they like to maybe... I don't want to say ruffle feathers because that's not true, but they just like to keep people on their... Oh, my God. But they like to keep people on their toes, you know, and birds don't have toes. Thank God that's not a pun.
But can I, the feather thing was a pun, first of all, but can I just ask what the deal is? With people who hear a song that might be different than they've ever heard before from a band that they like, and all of a sudden think that the band forgot how to play their instruments?
I don't understand that at all. And especially, like, think of it on the aspect of, like... talking because we were interviewed RJ, like, so I was listening back to old interviews from 2019, and Rick is talking about the music business side and like the idea that putting out singles is so much more effective as far as reaching new audiences because you get on those pre-made Spotify playlists or something like that. Like the amount of different audiences this will reach, like this like slow indie vibe that like it's still a great song. So, like, a lot of new people are going to come into this, and all of a sudden, I mean, I honestly can't wait to hear it live, because I feel like it's going to be something totally different, and, like, that's when a lot of people, I feel like, will fall in love with this.
Well, I think that's part of it. Part of the problem is where the band has found a bit of a following in a niche by nature. You know, you have to play music to make you, or let's say you have to make money and you want to do it by playing music. So you have to figure out the ways you can do that in any sort of capacity. Find your fan base in any sort of capacity. And these guys have always loved jamming. They like psychedelic rock. Improv's always been a part of that. And then the jam scene is its own little niche within that. And people that go to see these bands really love live improvisation, and that's a very predominant thing amongst the fans. So naturally, I think you get this inclination to not like studio tracks anyway, or to be surprised by studio tracks anyway. And I think we've moved from a time in this country in the 60s, 70s, and 80s where albums were really one of the biggest things artists focused on.
Oh, yeah.
And I've told tons of my friends this, and I'll just promote it on this podcast for the first time. But this classic albums documentary that I love, that I've showed my parents tons of them. I've showed friends tons of them. I've watched them with Ben and Sam and other parts of the band, other members of the band, and they've loved them. They're really cool insights into watching some of these people create these classic albums. Nevermind's on there by Nirvana. There's a Phil Collins episode. There's a ton of cool stuff, and you get to see how they do it in the studio. It's not what's coming out live for these guys. And there's a total different artistic approach to what they're doing in the studio. And for somebody like Rick, who's developed these songs who he hasn't played in forever, and then pulls them out, like This Old Sea, like A Western Sun. He wrote a while before 2018, finally here in 2018, everybody loves it. He wanted these things to be at a certain point before he even plays them live. That doesn't mean that song is never going to change. That doesn't mean
that's what they're going to play every show, every song.
It's going to be the exact same way and sound the exact same way. And that's of course not going to be the case. They're not going to be in the studio. They're going to be in a venue. The venue's going to sound different. Instruments are going to sound different. They're going to try different things. He's going to adapt the song as well.
Peter's going to have a new keyboard. We know what's next.
It took them forever.
We know what's coming.
It took them forever to get Tumble to the point where Tumble was one of a crowd favorite songs, and then now they have this Slow Tumble. Yeah. Maybe that was the way he wanted it the whole time.
The Stumble.
We really don't know, and they're going to keep developing these songs. So I just think, to some extent, the reaction
is... old Tumble.
The reaction's fine. I don't think necessarily people are wrong, but I think people should have some patience and wait and see, especially if your whole shtick is, I just don't want my live show to be a certain way, then wait and see how they weave that into their live show, because they're certainly not going to abandon what's taken them to this point.
Yeah, well, how can you have fucking patience when your TED Tapes vinyl's lost in the mail?
I got mine finally. Yeah, I'm happy.
Luckily,
I'm
mine
happy.
was undamaged, so yeah, I'm happy too.
Just kidding. We love the Merch Collective here. Stay tuned for giveaways, and also, this is news. Let's talk about Goose Day Tuesday.
All right. Yeah.
Our podcast has news.
Yes, this is news from our podcast.
Sorry to ruin the vibe for all of you.
Sorry, guys. You're going to have to hear from us a little bit more. Tuesdays during Winter Tour, every Tuesday, tune into Goose Day Tuesday live on our social channels, live through Osiris, where we're going to recap the shows played the week before, as well as do some merch giveaways, highlight some folks in our community, and maybe even have some guests to break down shows with us.
Yeah, if we feel like it. Greg and I are very self-important, so, we come across guests sparingly, and we may want to have them on.
Yeah.
We may want to have Joey on, too.
We may have Joey on.
So at this point, I will be a guest on those, because sadly, I have to be in an office on Tuesdays, so... Yeah,
Joey's
if anyone
a corporate
out there,
slave.
Yeah, if anyone out there wants to imitate my voice, my look, my opinions, feel free to send these guys an email, and auditions will be held.
Joey's takes CBD.
Sweating in the haze all day.
Oh, is he? I was going to say he takes CBD orally to get through his work day.
He's sweating so hard they had to change the lyrics. Anyway, let's talk to RJB. Let's talk to RJB a little bit about where the band's gone, where they're going to go next, and really whether or not our contract is terminated.
Yeah. And like we said on the live stream, as we say in this interview, there are so many interviews with this band on Osiris. Feel free to check those out. They're great interviews. And it's really cool to kind of reflect on them, where they were in 2019, 2020, after Bingo Tour. It really maps out, the path of the bands, which we'll do on our own after this interview. But, feel free to enjoy those and enjoy this interview.
Well, hold on, Joey. Before that, hot off the press, we've got a message from a sponsor. With this being our first episode under the Osiris umbrella, we could only think of one person to be our special guest for today's episode, president of Osiris Media and host of the Helping Friendly podcast, The Drop and Undermine, the one and only RJB. Welcome, RJ.
Wow. What an introduction. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Welcome to the family.
Thank you, man.
So, we're almost 2 years to the day that you and Tom Marshall interviewed Rick and Peter during the Brooklyn Podcast Festival, had a performance from them as well as Jeff in the pre-Arebelo days. So my first question to start this off is, did you ever think in your wildest dreams there'd be a Goose podcast on Osiris 2 years later?
I mean, I have to say yes. I mean, I do think that going back to that show, which was 2 years ago, it was pretty obvious to us, and I think to you guys, I'm sure, and many thousands of others, that like this band had something pretty incredible going musically as well as like community wise. And so I think that was really fun, and I wish we had done that again before the pandemic, because it was so much fun. But I mean, ever since I discovered Goose, I've been thinking about the ways that the Goose community could be brought into the Osiris community in a podcast fashion. So I wasn't sure what form that would take, but you guys are doing it. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's a nebulous form. Yeah, the exact form still hasn't really came to manifest, but it was one of these.
The best way to start.
Yeah, exactly. We're molding.
Yeah, but so, I mean, like I mentioned at the top of the show, like I've been a fan of Osiris for so long, especially during the pandemic. Like plus one with Eric Krasno especially really got me through it. Like hearing those conversations, because normally like the best thing about, I mean, not the best thing about shows, but a great appeal of shows is hanging out in the lot afterwards, talking to people about how much you loved what you just saw. And because we couldn't do that, there had to be some kind of supplement for it. So, I'm really happy to be a part of Osiris, really excited to do it. But like we kind of mentioned, you guys had some live shows geared up before the pandemic. You had those Scott Metzger Jam Just Happened shows. So for 2022, as things are opening back up, do you have anything planned for the year?
Yeah, I'll just say Kraz is so awesome. He has, he wanted to call his show Plus One because he wanted it to be like a conversations backstage with his friends, and that's exactly what ended up happening. And it was such a great addition, right at the beginning of the pandemic. It was what an amazing, also an amazing dude. Yeah, so we just did a live show at Ardmore Music Hall here, right outside of Philly, with Magner and Brownie from the Biscuits and Charlie Hall from the War on Drugs and Anthony Kryzon, who played with the Spin Doctors, as well as Tom Marshall's band Amphibian. And they loved it. We loved it. The fans were like, this format's amazing. Please keep doing these kinds of shows. So that really actually, that was like the first, a week before Christmas or something. And it was like, we need to do more of this. We need to like get back out there. The Jam Just Happened shows you mentioned were so incredible. Like every time we do a show, because we try to mix some kind of podcast interview or improv into it, and we're going to keep doing those. There's definitely a lot more of those on the horizon, including hopefully one at Ardmore soon, but we're also looking at doing events in New York, Nashville, LA, and Denver, I think, in 2022. So we're trying to keep it Osiris, as in some conversation, some music, but we're definitely we're moving in that direction, and we're psyched to do more for sure.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the live events are definitely something that we're looking forward to. And I know we mentioned the live interview at the Brooklyn Podfest with Rick and Peter and Jeff, and we do want to discuss that for sure. But with hanging with a lot of the theme of this episode, we're kind of going back and looking where Goose has come from. But going back to 2019, when you interviewed the 4-piece version of the band on the drop, we were interested kind of picking your brain about what did you hear in this band the first time that really made you want to talk to them and find more out about them.
Yeah. It's funny because we were at the 930 Club backstage, and I've interviewed a bunch of people at the 930 Club, and that was my first interview with Goose, and all 4 of the guys were in the room, and I was in the room, and I think it was on the recording, but I cut it out of the final version because I was like, are there more people coming, or is it just you guys? Because I wasn't actually sure how many people were in the band at the time. So they were like, no, this is the whole band. And I was like, yeah, right. Of course.
That's great.
Yeah, it was kind of a funny moment. I'm not sure they remember that. Hopefully they don't, but now they will when they hear this. I got introduced to their music through the Arcadia from the Peach Fest, that set that like so many people I know, that was their first Goose experience. And I was like really, in terms of how they could build a jam, particularly that Arcadia, which I think still is just like, it holds up as an incredible piece of improv.
It really does somehow. Yeah, it definitely does.
It's amazing. Yeah. Amazing. But they could build a jam, but also like Rick's voice and the words, like the songwriting. I just thought they were pretty rare for a band from this like broader jam band improv community based on what I've seen. And I also think like they have this respect for the space and the music, that almost is like, reminds me of the Dead in a way. There's not like a hurry to get through things. There's not like a fill the space with as many notes. Like they definitely jam hard, but there's a respect for like the space, which I think is pretty rare in this community. So once I dug into it, I was like, I want to learn more about these guys. And I think Rick, his songwriting and his vocals are just incredible. And I think Peter's, like, based on my interpretation, his approach to like how they started to package themselves a little differently in terms of marketing and rollout. And like, there was a little bit of mystery in terms of like, what's this band all about? But at the same time, they kept playing more and more shows. I feel like it was like a perfect storm of, great songs, great improv, and like a good kind of like packaging of what they were doing. I thought it was really impressive. So I wanted to learn more about them for sure.
So that's we were hearing a lot of the same things. And I think what stuck out to us most is you and a prolific songwriter and Tom Marshall took the time to sit down and kind of hear a lot more about what we heard in these guys. And so I guess my next question would be, what led you to ask them to play the songs that they did play? How did, between A Western Sun on the Goose catalog side and then Brian and Robert, how did these things resonate with you guys, and what led you to that decision?
Yeah, I mean, it was such a fun event, and it was, like you guys said, we talked about it was right before the pandemic started. And I mean, I think 2020, if the pandemic hadn't happened, it would have been an insane year for Goose live. It was going to be crazy. You could feel the momentum building from 2019.
Totally agree.
And the intimacy of a show like that, like the one that we did, it was so fun. But we went back and forth and talked about a couple of Fish songs that they appreciated. And then Tom and I put our heads together. Western Sun, to me, it's one of my favorites just because the subject matter is close to my heart. And I've talked to Rick about that a little bit, but the songwriting, the lyrics, Tom wasn't super familiar with them. And then we started looking into the songs, and I was sending him the lyrics, and Matt Kalinsky was sending us a bunch of stuff. And Tom, I think, got into it and was like, wow, these are really amazing songs. So we decided on a couple Fish songs and a couple Goose songs, and it was so much fun. And I think they had a lot of fun. I mean, that was the first time that I met Jeff, and that kind of trio ended up happening again. I don't know if it's because of that show or just because they were already playing together, but it's really cool to see that kind of side that I think people hadn't seen. And I wish we'd been able to do another one of those, because I think it gave people a unique insight into the band. I loved hearing the thinking behind the songs and then hearing them play it. I just think that format is so much fun.
So we're going to go ahead, because we are the leading podcast in Goose adjacent news, and say that we're going to go ahead and say that the Osiris interview was the impetus for Jeff joining the band.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll leave that here.
We could say a lot of things, but I don't know if they're always accurate. But
I believe it. I believe it. I appreciate that.
Definitely was a big push, though, and it was great to get them on stage together. They actually were playing as a three-piece a little bit before that, just because they had started living together a little bit before that. And Rick and Jeff having been good friends and playing music for a long time, Justin playing music for a long time. So I think it was just a natural. They just got along very well, and that's kind of how the bands come together to this point anyway. So it just kind of worked out. But definitely hope that we do get to do one of those again, because that was a ton of fun.
I'm available, but you guys are on it. So, if you guys need a guest host, just let me know.
They worry about me interviewing. So yeah,
I also would say, just in terms of the vocal harmony, which is of course a unique thing about Rick and Peter's ability to play music together. I think in those acoustic songs, you could just hear that so clearly. And that was just so much fun to be able to kind of isolate that, and hear it acoustic. A lot of beautiful music came out of that.
Yeah, it was funny. Tom mentioned that, because I was trying to listen back just to get a few points for the show today. But he mentions that it's at one point, I think before you guys talk about Western Sun, that they're always electric. So this is a very special time to get to hear them acoustic. And now that they're playing acoustic a little bit more and going to play acoustic as a full band at Radio City, it's funny how that's changed. That momentum has changed a lot. So
yeah, and even beside the music side of it, when you go in, I'm curious, from the podcast side, how you approach something like that, because when you see a new bands who, you have all these questions you don't really know much about, how do you approach an interview like that? Do you have top things you want to ask about for different bands, or is it kind of a generic, all right, this is how I'm going to shape this interview, how I want to form, how I want the band to come off? But I mean, with a band like Goose, there has to be this specific song, I need to know the answer to this specific question that I'm dying. Yeah.
I try to keep a handle on the bands, just what people are saying about them on Twitter, Instagram. I try to understand what people think about them and what people are wondering about them. And sometimes I'll tweet hey, I'm going to talk to this band. What questions would you ask? I'm actually not, because I'm not a musician. I don't go into it thinking about it from a songwriting or musical interaction perspective. Matt Dwyer, who you guys know, he and I interview people together, and we have completely different approaches, because he asks about the music, and I really just want to like get to know the musicians as people and like understand like, how did you bring this group of, four dudes together to make this music that's clearly resonating with people in a way that to me is pretty rare, especially in this kind of jam band improv community that has a ton of music and a lot of bands coming and going, and bands that, have been around for a long time and still draw crowds. But this seemed to me that the momentum was different, and I wanted to like understand them as people and why it resonated,
Yeah.
So, but I don't take the like music perspective, which is like, maybe I think that's good in a way, but it also is like, I don't really go in with musical questions, because I feel like if I start asking musical questions, I'm going to be at a loss, so I try not to go down that road too much, except for the things that resonate with me.
Yeah, and it's like kind of resonates with the audience, because I feel like most people aren't that big into the music, actually like playing music kind of thing. Like sometimes just being a good audience member is understanding the story and appreciating the music for what it is.
Joey and I are very good audience members. We have Greg for musical theory if we need that. We try not to rely on that because we have Greg for musical theory. So yeah, we get where you're coming from, RJ.
I'm so good at musical theory that I talk while the band's playing, because I don't actually need to listen to what's coming next, which people around me love. But RJ, I think, to like, you mentioned how 2020 should have been a huge year for Goose. And I for a while thought what could have been, right? Maybe they could have been at Radio City by 2021, but like things worked out as they tend to. And, to fast forward a bit, like had we not had everything that happened in 2020, we'd have never had Bingo Tour. And, that was such a pivotal moment where I feel like not only was musicianship front and center for, those four shows, but also like really the quality production between sound and lights and everything, the whole package was on display for the world to watch. And the Drop was able to interview the guys for a Bingo Tour recap. So, I'm wondering kind of what you think about the production value for things and how that sets the band apart, and really how being at home for everyone, for music fans worldwide, set Goose apart.
Yeah. I mean, I think they did a better job than any other band in the pandemic of communicating with fans and playing music with fans from home to other people's homes. I mean, to me, it's all about the community, and I think they engage the community in a way that so many artists who, so many solo artists would play acoustic on Facebook, and that's like intimate and authentic and interesting, but not super engaging in a two-way communication. But I think engaging with the community in a way like the Bingo Tour did was super innovative and really was pretty unique. Like I didn't see a lot of other artists doing that. And to me, of course, the video and the audio, like these guys don't do anything half-assed, like if they're going to stream something, it's going to be good and it's going to be high quality. And so it was exactly what I expected on that front. But I just loved, the reason I wanted to do those recaps is like, so many people were talking about it. And that's what sets them apart, I think, is there's like the humor and the goofiness and the inside jokes and the way you keep a community kind of on its toes. But then there's also this like accessibility of like the music and the songwriting that brings people in. And I wonder how many new fans came around in 2020 and 2021. But to me, like it was a huge success, and I was super impressed, not only with the production, but upstream of production obviously is like, what are we trying to do? And it's clear that the goal was to like keep people engaged and keep people guessing and keep people coming back. And it seemed like that was a huge success.
I think the goal was also to put Greg and Bruce on display, of course, so it could lead to a podcast on Osiris. But of course,
I always thought that was the goal.
But I'm glad they were thinking of everyone except for us. They did tell us the Wednesday of Bingo Tour that we'd be doing Sports Center style halftime shows. So glad it worked out.
You did a great job.
A lot of creative planning went into that.
Yeah. I remember when I saw you guys doing the halftime show stuff at Bingo Tour and others, I was like, well, these guys should definitely be doing stuff with us. So I'm glad that it worked eventually. And you guys are
You weren't the only one. That's literally the reason I reached out to Greg. I was like, hey, this should be a podcast. Like I was listening to Osiris a bunch at the time. I was like, yeah, this is exactly like what I want to keep listening to, especially because I was obsessed with Goose.
Yeah.
That's like, I wanted more conversations about Goose. But so speaking of that time, now obviously Goose is blown up. They have the Radio City shows coming up. Like these guys they're beyond they're on their way up kind of thing. Like I remember the funniest thing was you guys talking about with the live interview on Under the Scales, like, oh, you guys are on van tour. Like, wait till you have a bus and then you have trucks and multiple buses. Now they have that tour bus that they're going on. So like, it's literally starting to come true. But as they're blowing up, and I feel like during COVID, like this whole new, I don't want to call it a generation, but like there's a lot of young bands now coming behind Goose. So is there anyone specifically that you're listening to now you're really excited about, you can't wait, to see come up in the scene?
Yeah, Goose. I mean,
I agree.
Well said.
I will say that until we get a tour bus. So I agree, RJ.
I'm really bad at staying on top of like up and coming bands. I think I feel old, I'm like in my 40s and I try to stay on top of it. But, to me, there's so much to be excited about with this band that this is the up and coming band that I'm focused on in terms of new music. I keep discovering new music. I keep going back and discovering, like I discovered Billie Eilish for the first time like 9 months ago, and I was like, wait, I've been missing something here. I'm like,
Billie Eilish slaps, by the way.
I keep going back and discovering music that already exists. So I feel like I'm not a good like predictor of the next bands, but are there bands that you guys are excited about? Like
we'll
up and coming bands?
A Dua Lipa spinoff when Goose is off the road.
I'm excited about Dua Lipa, definitely. Yeah, when I didn't get the tour bus, I thought about just moving on to the Dua Lipa fan base and doing a group for them instead, where I'm wanted. But I wasn't wanted there either. Yeah, I'm getting older too, RJ, so I don't connect either. But honestly, this leads into one of our other questions for you was if we're just talking about Goose in that case, then is there anything you're excited about looking into the future with Goose and anything that they haven't done yet, maybe that you'd like to see them do?
Yeah, I mean, man, there's so much like that they're doing that I think it's interesting, like talking about Radio City and how they're kind of blowing up. Like I agree, that's like it's a huge venue and a huge step forward in terms of their reach.
For sure. Yeah.
But I've seen, I mean, I don't know, in the 2.5, 3 years I've been listening to them, like I've been impressed by their evolution and how much they've grown. I think to me, there's like, you guys all know this and talk about this, but to me, there's so many aspects of this band that keep it interesting. And some of it's that, like there isn't a huge barrier to entry. It's not super prog focused. There's not like a ton of, like Fish, to be fair, it was like there was a barrier to entry back in the day. Like you had to like go in being willing to, hear 10-minute like Guela Papyrus or something, or you had to be willing to like hear these things that weren't super mainstream music. Like I think these guys do a good job of keeping it original, but keeping it accessible. The covers they choose, I think, they're so good. And I actually think that they like bring in a lot of people like my age with some of the cover choices that are like,
absolutely.
The way it is like,
that Love is a Battlefield.
Escape. We accidentally muted RJ because we didn't want to hear what covers he was going to bring up. It was fun. We were just going to name them, Knights in White.
RJ
Satin.
loves all the Kenny Loggins.
We know all the old people covers. Yeah, it's fine. No, it's cool.
But if you're feeling old, try Sunset Lake CBD. Is what I want to say. Try
honestly. Yes. I feel refreshed. I can tell you that.
I think so. In terms of what I want to see from them, just to finish that, I don't know. I mean, I think to me the songwriting is incredible. And some of the songs that I love the most are like, I mentioned Western Sun, but like This Old Sea. And, there's so many that like the new song, I'm excited for new songs from them, which I'm typically like not that excited for new songs from bands I like. Cause I'm like, shit, what if I don't like them? That would be unfortunate. And, I never feel that with them. And I feel like Rick in particular, Rick and Peter, both of them, I think they're like writing has become more mature, but also like more vulnerable and open in a way. Like the songwriting is becoming, I think like it sounds like a band that's been together for 20, 25 years in terms of the songs they're writing. So I just want them to like keep being unafraid to, be vulnerable and follow their muse. And I like the compositional aspect of it, of course, that ties into a longer song, whether it's like a composed section and, multi-section kind of song or something like that. But also just the vocal harmonies, that's really all I want to see. So I want them to just keep doing what they're doing and keep pushing in the same direction. Cause I think it's amazing to me, like the new songs I hear or songs I didn't know before that I'm like, wow, this is like better than, it's better than hearing Arcadia like for the 20th time or something, which then they play that. And then it's like a cherry on top,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, one of the things that I do want to impress, because I do hear it sometimes, and you mentioned it, it's just that it's funny how it's a chicken and an egg situation. It's kind of like the paradox of being a musician, where you have confidence in your songs. So you go and play them live. You want to put them out there. You want people to hear them. But until people hear them and then give you the confidence back and then start selling out these venues for you, and then people want you to come play Radio City, it makes it a lot easier to be vulnerable and confident in your music. And I think now that's what we're getting with Goose, is that they're willing to put more out there. They're starting to put more new music out there, and they're starting to develop their music and develop it in the way that Rick and Peter and the rest of the band want to play and want to hear it. And I think we're all benefiting from that. So as the fans put in more, it just conversely comes right back from the band. So it's a very special situation that they're definitely in. And that's, again, why they appreciate the fans so much, because it enables them to go to those places that fans like you and all of us want to see them go. So it's a very interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, also they're all just such nice guys and really down to earth in a way that is, to me, like really great. Like every time I've talked to them, they're certainly aware of what they're doing and really smart about the choices they're making with music and marketing. And they have a great, management team and team around them, like Greg and others. I mean, that's all super supportive, but I think they're also just making. Sure. I just think they're allowing it to happen, and not trying to force it to happen, which is something I've never been through because I'm not a musician. But it seems to me like they're embracing it without pushing it, which I think to me seems like the right balance. Like I don't know what a Radio City Goose show is going to be like, but I'm sure they're going to figure it out, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah,
for sure.
You talk about not forcing it, like especially during the pandemic. I can't imagine being a band like you're about to blow up, and all of a sudden this gets thrown on you and like, you don't know what to do. Like and the fact that they just took so much control of it. Like the one thing I thought of, and like coming into this podcast, was like the attitude I want to have was like, they went so far above and beyond what I expected, what anyone expected. Like we talked about the production, like you were saying, like I watched other bands live streams and I was like, yeah, this is great. Like this is really filling my fix of shows. And then that opening shot of like Danny coming in with the Steadicam outside, and he comes in, and even the shock of there's a new band member, like that was enough. But that's, I think,
then the halftime show, and then being blown away by the halftime show. But I just wanted to.
yeah. Well, that too. Honestly, that halftime show, I mean, it changed my life too. The fact that I got to meet these guys and like form this whole thing. I mean, this has been so much fun to just honestly talk about Goose,
for better or worse. For better or worse, for sure.
There is no worse. What are you kidding? What are you talking?
It's all about.
We're just getting started. We're just getting started.
Yeah, just wait, right? Joey.
So, looking forward, right? I think we're excited about Radio City. We're excited about everything that's coming next, and there's plenty of stuff that I'm not privy to until announcement week that will be coming this year that we can be super excited about. But
like what?
I will tell you.
If only he was the publicist, he would know. Am I right?
It's fun. But I'm wondering, beyond the confines of what we know about the jam world and the music that we love and the indie groove world, if you will, RJ, on the 10-year anniversary of the Brooklyn Podcast Festival interview, when hopefully I can put a placeholder in the calendar for you to interview them again.
Yeah.
Yes. What would be the most exciting thing that the band could be looking forward to in that year?
Wow. That's amazing. What a great great question. I mean, I think I think the sky's the limit. Like I really do in a lot of ways for this band. I don't see them as like a jam band really. Like I see them as a band that has so many tentacles in different genres that anywhere. I was thinking of a festival, like Coachella or Lollapalooza, which I could totally see them headlining one of those festivals in the next, 5 years.
I could see made a joke with friends about that. Sorry, RJ, that came up last week in a group chat with friends about Coachella, and I was like, only if they're headlining, I will go, but I do have fashion available if I need to. So but
I could see that.
Mention that. Yeah.
I could see Glastonbury. I could see them breaking through in another country. I could see them taking this stuff to Europe and really impressing fans there. So to me, it would be. Because I think the festival vibe is still no matter how much they push into other genres, the festival vibe for a live show is always going to be a great fit for Goose. And I guess that to me, a national or international festival would be I wouldn't be that surprised, but I would be really psyched to be able to go check them out, or even Jazz Fest. I think they should play Jazz Fest in the next few years. And
I hope so.
10 years is a long time, man. Shit.
Well, I've had Glastonbury on my radar for years, as I am from Glastonbury, Connecticut. So I've been preserving some of my high school sports clothing.
Same place,
for,
pretty much.
When I can wear it through. So hopefully we'll be there together, and it'll be
amazing.
The 8th year of the Great Beyond on Osiris. But RJ, thank you so much for joining us. We are incredibly thankful for your time as well as your partnership with us. It's going to be a fun few years as we work through all of this and really see what's coming next. Some of those announcements that I alluded to will be coming soon, so stay tuned. Maybe on Goose Day Tuesday, we'll have a giveaway for all of you. But RJ, if you could leave our listeners with your greatest hope for the Great Beyond, what would it be?
Oh, man.
To make episodes? just a guess.
Bruce took mine. So no, I mean, really it's going to sound really cheesy, but I just want you guys to enjoy it and have fun, because so many creative projects. I mean, as you guys, I'm sure know and imagine, we talk to hundreds of people who want to start podcasts or people who do start podcasts and then drop off because it's a huge commitment and it's hard to do from a logistical, technological, emotional standpoint. But if you can keep it lively and keep it interesting without just saying, you know what, I've had enough of this. That's a huge task. So I think if you guys keep it interesting and keep enjoying it, that's really all that's all I hope for you guys. Cause I think it's really cool. And just like the band, the sky's the limit, where this can go in terms of live shows and recaps and, other mediums in terms of video and short form stuff on Instagram. I mean, you guys can do anything because the Goose community is looking to you guys for commentary and ongoing sort of, it reminds me of HF Pod, that I've been doing for almost 10 years in very different iterations. And it's really just about keeping it fresh, making sure you're having fun, keeping it interesting. That's it.
No, well, thanks. I keep trying to tell Joey and Greg to be more interesting, but one of these days, we're going to definitely get there. But no, we really appreciate having you on, RJ, and this interview was great, man. And we're really happy to be with Osiris. So we hope we can keep delivering for sure.
Welcome to the family.
We will deliver, is what we mean by that.
There's no hope.
There's no hope.
I haven't hoped in at least 3 years. So we're going to deliver.
Welcome to the family, guys. And also, when you guys do want to talk about the Torch conversation, just
never
hit me up, because I have a lot of thoughts. I have thoughts about why it's an inappropriate conversation to have. So when you want more feedback, hit me up.
Well, we will talk Torch till we're blue in the face when Bruce's Sunset Lake CBD arrives.
Fair enough.
20% off with the code Beyond. RJB, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for having us on Osiris. And we look forward to everything that's coming next.
Yeah. Welcome to the family, guys. Thanks so much for having me. It was really fun to talk to you guys.
Thank you, RJ.
Thank you, RJ.
Talk to you soon.
Peace.
Big thank you to RJB, our new boss, for joining today. And, I think it's just looking back, the excitement around the time of them doing the Brooklyn Podcast Festival was tangible, right? It was right after playing in the sand, after a successful fall tour. And they were about to hit the West Coast for the first time with Pigeons. Actually, it was like right the week after they left.
Yeah, I remember the Brooklyn Comes Alive festival that was supposed to have. They were supposed to combine with Pigeons and do like a shared
at the
set.
end of that tour.
Yeah.
At the end of that tour, yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
So sad that didn't happen.
let's think about all of this, right? What were some of the marquee moments?
Well, I think, part of the theme of this episode and looking back and bringing us up to today with the band is for, hopefully we're getting new listeners from moving on to Osiris. I don't know. Our listeners were getting stale.
If you're still with us, stay, please.
But yeah, like you said, coming off, obviously everybody's heard about Peach ad nauseum, was a huge point. 2019 fall tour was amazing. Then when we get to the Mexico trip, Brooklyn Podfest, awesome. Get to learn more about the guys, learn more about their songwriting. The 2 New York shows that were oversold till nobody could breathe. And then they were going to go out on tour with Pigeons. They did. That opening tour was very successful for both bands until March. And then everything hit the fan with the pandemic, and things had to stop, and the band had to pivot, and
Release vinyl.
the band had to release a ton of vinyls that were never going to get into anyone. To me, one of the best business decisions they made. But then, that's when, again, speaking of business decisions and having to support 1111, having the support of, what the internet has given to people, what technology's allowed for people to do with all these streaming shows. And obviously everybody knows that...
No, they don't. Tell them.
Come
on, Bruce.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
For all you don't know, streaming became pretty big when everybody was locked in their houses, and Goose really took advantage of that in a lot of ways that they could, and setting up avocados and candles, and
Avocado
playing
candles.
songs
Yeah.
from animated series. But it ended up working, and a lot of other bands tried to hit the ground running with that too. And so it's not right to discount all of that. A lot of people put in a lot of work and had a lot of ideas about all this stuff. But one thing that did blossom out of that for the band was Bingo Tour, and obviously, Greg and I were a big part of that, maybe the biggest. And
Sure. I can't. Yeah. I don't think the guys had ever heard of Bingo, really, until we came around.
No, right. A lot of people never even heard of Bingo. And
which is crazy because we don't even really play that much Bingo.
No, it's wild. I don't even remember being
Yeah, I don't remember talking about
Well,
that.
there was this one point that, I really do appreciate, and this I reflect on all the time, was, I think they played Travelers, and you, Bruce, mentioned, I remember when it was called Elmeg.
That was me.
That was you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was I was oh, it piqued my curiosity. I was like, what is this
And they were like,
Elmeg now?
it's Travelers.
Yeah.
And I was
It's
like, Drive 6. Well, that's back in my day.
And honestly,
back in my day.
A little of a real backstory is Greg and I, with no creative direction from the band, of course, besides Peter telling me I can't swear. Thanks, Peter.
Screw that.
The
huh?
only way I'm
Yeah.
funny. And then, so, we were trying to write down a lot of notes during the shows, and we had been there for the rehearsal and had heard Travelers. And to me, that was funny because I turned to Greg. I'm like, that's Elmeg, right? And Greg's like, I think it's Elmeg.
I was like, yeah, hell yeah, it is. I wasn't going to let you know.
We get up there,
I wasn't
Greg
gonna
goes
let-
right into it, and I'm like, yeah, Elmeg. And then they're like, it's Travelers. And it's like, oh, fuck us. But so, it ended up working out. And that was a huge part of them blossoming and just having an interactive experience with fans, which doesn't seem like such a crazy idea now, but just the fact that they were the first
Now.
ones. Now, a whole year later. But now, it's like, it meant a lot to people at the time, and we had a very annoying shtick getting people involved, which brainwashed people to get involved, which was great.
Oh, I got involved.
And
You're still involved.
and
Look at
so-
you.
Yeah, look at me
you right now.
A Sunday night.
Yeah, we really hooked Joey into the cult, and then now he does work for Greg and I, and so. It's just been like that, and everything's kind of just been working for the band. The community involvement's been working. We have a great community behind them. Everybody likes to get behind the culture and the jokes, and that's been a big part of it since the streams really started. And then luckily, too, Goose has managed to play shows. So late 2020 in the fall, we actually got shows, and local shows in Connecticut that could attract a lot of local fans anyway, like at the South Farms venue, which unfortunately has had a lot of trouble.
No more, yeah.
But, that was a huge opportunity for them, and a lot of places that they took advantage of.
I mean, Yarmouth, Swansea,
Legend Valley,
Essex. Like, there were some really legendary shows. And, like, think about the Yarmouth shows, right? We were acting a fool on Cape Cod.
Dude, that was unbelievable.
Pre-vaccine, pre-variants,
Yeah.
just gallivanting through drive-ins across the Northeast that probably hadn't really done anything except for play Jaws for 20 years.
And the fact that, like, we had to bring our own individual speakers. At least I brought, like, a little tailgater that tuned into the radio station. Some people were just playing through their cars. I remember security coming up and be like, you can't play that too loud. We have neighbors and stuff like that.
Unbelievable.
And, like, the fact that it was still, like, the most fun I've had at a show, even though the sounds, there's this huge echo. I couldn't see the stage at all. I can't even imagine the people way in the back with
Pretty
their
trippy
view.
though, right?
Yeah, but, like, just to be together, the idea of, like, talking about, I think they're going to this song. Like, I hadn't done that in, 10 months, 8 months at that point?
Yeah.
I mean, even Yarmouth was their biggest show ever at the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there was never... Prior to that, like, the biggest show was probably a festival set, maybe Peach. But, like, yeah, right. I mean, I have just, that was their biggest show to date. Swansea was huge, and like, all that happened in a flash, and it was like flying the plane as we built it, or however it goes, as is the podcast we are currently broadcasting. But then the year next comes, and we have...
more socially distant shows.
Yeah, but you had
first time in Florida in 5 years.
But you had also, to cap that year, like, Goose was lucky enough to get through that 2020 tour, which was obviously weird. Like, we're talking about eclectic, a lot of these various venues that had never, shown anything but some weird French war. Yeah. I was watching that. But anyway, it's like 2020 ends now with Goosemas. Totally isolated, essentially, except for cool people like Greg and I. We were allowed to go.
Arguable, but yes, we were there.
Cool, but like that was almost no one. Friends and family and crew, and that was it. And then like they roll into 2021. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows when they're going to get their
except
vinyls.
for Vampire Weekend, apparently.
They had some premonition about what would be a good song, right? But then again, Goose hit the ground running as soon as May started up. And they started up shows. Again, they were lucky to be able to play them. Everybody stayed safe. Everybody was avoiding COVID at that time, and they managed to find all these cool places to play outside the caverns of Tennessee.
Inside the caverns for part of the show.
Cavern Party was epic.
Yeah, Cavern Party was litty. I mean, even like the tropical oasis that is Florida, where the pandemic doesn't exist.
Oh, dude, that was unbelievable. That was like the most freeing weekend I think I had. Because like obviously like we're in New York and Connecticut, we're trying to be as safe as possible. It's a city, so like one person gets it, like it's gonna spread like wildfire. So we were as protective as we could possibly be. But to go down to the swamp and like see how those people were living for a weekend and like kind of just like, forget that a pandemic's going on for a little bit. Like
I forgot that show happened. Speaking of forgetting, because I didn't go.
Right.
Hopefully now that we're official, the band can grease the skids and get me to the freaking shows.
But like it was so much fun, and you guys didn't go to the Frederick shows. Like that rainstorm. Like
we felt that rain coming in our knees. We didn't have Sunset Lake CBD.
I was like, I ain't getting electrocuted till I get my CBD.
Like, I remember talking to people after, and people were like, "Man, I feel so bad that was canceled." Like honestly, like that is one of the best shows I've ever been to. Was that night one in Frederick because of the party and the puddles that was going on up on the rail.
We were going to stream from Gino's house, and we're like playing cards, waiting, and we're like, oh my god, now there's a tornado warning. Like,
I remember watching it.
Dude, there was like lightning behind the stage. Like they definitely shouldn't have come on stage.
It was insane.
I mean, I remember watching it on Google Maps and diabolically laughing from Brooklyn.
I remember Trevor telling me about those huge bass amp speakers or whatever they had sitting right in front of the stage, and we're just in like a foot of water. He's like, hopefully I don't hit the wrong string, and just like electrocute all my fans, but he didn't because he cares about all of you.
Yeah, but he could have.
He could have though. Like, he has that.
He had your life in his hands, but he's a very benevolent.
He could do that without water. Really,
he's a benevolent ruler. Thank you.
Shout out Bass Daddy. So beyond Trevor keeping us all safe, Charleston too.
Yeah.
Charleston, and that was the first time they came with something slow.
That was the last time I get to a show a night early.
Well, I was gonna make fun of a ton of things there, but we can just keep moving.
Yeah, let's talk about us.
But yeah, then things really took off. And again, now you had, and I've talked to a bunch of people about this 2021 late spring summer, where people were flooding whatever shows they could get to.
Right.
And all these shows are also still socially distanced. So you had this great mix of everybody trying to get to every single show. Bands were on fire. Bands were energized, finally getting to play, finally getting to make some money. People were finally getting to see some music, getting to release a little bit, getting to see some friends. And
I'm not going to lie, I like Panic, but I'll come see this. I should come back. I was like, I feel warm.
I know Panic had English fans.
Yeah.
What was that accent?
Yes, American English. Southern.
It's a very distinguished dialect.
Sorry, that's what I heard. Yeah.
But then, I mean, it was like this huge rush, right? And then here we are now, a few months removed from this new variant coming up and really crushing a lot of dreams once again in the fall.
Well, Goosemas 2, Goosentine's Day.
Yeah, Goosentine's Day. I don't celebrate that holiday.
It's a Hallmark holiday. It's a Hallmark holiday.
I celebrate loneliness, everyone. But, exactly. I mean,
2022, what you think about, Bruce?
Yeah, we don't. I never want to hear that again. So honestly, like they were again fairly successful with knocking out a lot of these really, really good shows towards the end of 2021. Before, unfortunately, the band succumbed to what a lot of people did, no matter how hard you were trying.
Yeah,
Marion, right?
Yeah, it was some Greek letter.
Okay, got it.
I studied Latin.
Yeah, so, Marion. Yeah.
Marion.
Yeah, but still was able to make Chi-Town happen.
Yeah, which is great too, because obviously the band had to shake off some rust for those shows, but so did everyone. And I think a lot of the fans were just so happy that they were able to get to some of those shows, didn't have to cancel travel and Airbnb plans, and just had something to do on NYE that everybody needed pretty badly at this point. And then now, you all got our historical primer. It's going to be on the History Channel later after Osiris, but
more of an A&E primer, I think.
Yeah, now we're up to whatever month this is and whatever year this is, 2022, I guess.
And we're going to think about Bruce. So in 2022, we got Radio City Music Hall. We got Borne.
We got Goosemas. The replacement coming up. I keep forgetting about that. Goosemas is coming up.
It's not sensible.
It just doesn't seem right. It's Christmas.
But it's Mohegan Sun.
Sure,
it is.
I keep forgetting that this is about to happen. This place is about to pop off.
Oh, I'm trying to forget. I just keep hoping. Anyway, but I'll be there. I can't wait. I can't wait to see everybody there. Honestly.
Well, we've got Mohegan, but before Mohegan, alert: the band's never done a headline West Coast tour. This is the first one. They've never done this, and they're doing a very similar route to what they did in 2020. Very similar route, Arizona, San Diego, LA, San Fran, Portland, Bend,
Tempe.
Tempe. Yep. Yeah. Tempe, Arizona, right?
Yeah.
It's in Arizona. Great.
Cool. Could have convinced me otherwise. They're doing this again on their own. And I think I don't know. I'm going to just have to go check it out. So I'll let you guys know on the next episode.
Yeah.
Greg will be there. Yeah.
Greg's going out, so if you see him, say hi to him. He'll bring a microphone out there to record you all. Me and Bruce will be doing
You can talk about me with him,
2022, we're going to talk about Bruce.
Tell him how much you love Bruce.
But there's one big, massive puzzle piece that we have not mentioned. From all of this, it really ties it all together, I believe. The electric...
Oscar.
Shenanigans... The movie. Oscar worthy.
Oscar nominated, I think.
Soon
if it's not, it's a shame.
Yeah, soon to be.
Yeah.
Probably
it's
in one of the future timelines from the movie.
I didn't tell Joey. I'm still working on hacking into that Oscar system. But yeah, once I get there, we're going to have some knobs.
Thank you to the 0 of you that joined the Great Beyond chat room for that.
I couldn't even join.
It feel weird as a 33-year-old man setting up a chat room.
I left after 15 minutes. Also, I only care about my own role in the movie.
So let's just dig into this now, because I think this is probably the most important part of the episode. Bruce has a
Clyde.
history.
Clyde.
Clyde Robinson has a storied history on stage. The man acted at the Globe Theater in Harlem. No, I'm just kidding. In London. He played Hamlet, HAMLIT, promo code for Sunset Lake CBD. But Bruce has been doing this for a minute. And we shot a movie in November of 2020. Shot this movie, Shenanigans Nightclub, the movie. Bruce, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, what's it about? Because I watched it 3 times.
I'm wondering as well.
I'm still...
So it's about me and how I look in different outfits. And it's also about time travel. It's about friendship between men and women.
Menship.
And then, it's just...
Womanship.
I guess it relates to the album. But it's something complimentary. One of the things that the band has really tried to do, and all of us around the band have tried to do, is just keep building content. And it's an important part of anybody that's in any sort of creative industry these days, and
including podcasting.
The band, a good friend of the band from long ago, and a good friend of all of ours, Will Thresher. He's done a lot for the guys since the Visuto days. He's extremely creative, extremely artistic. And this was a good opportunity, too, for him to be able to take artistic control, do a very long music video, essentially, and had to change directions a lot, and it was a good joke, just a good way to get everybody involved at a time where work wasn't being consistent,
Got to give a shout out beyond the band to the team that put it together.
Yeah.
Right? Will Thresher.
Yeah, for sure.
Trey Cassetta, Brian Murphy, so obviously listening to our podcast, it sounds like we know what we're doing because we do. This movie was new territory.
Sounds like we know what we're doing.
New territory for all of us. And a lot of the people behind How Goose Looks Through a Lens actually worked with us on this, And so Will Thresher, of course, wrote it, directed it. Brian Murphy, Trey Cassetta, moving those cameras around, having to listen to me sounding Australian, allegedly.
They did a lot, and then there was a lot of time that was invested after the filming to refilm. I had to bring a hoodie back over to Trevor's so Jeff could wear it. I mean, everybody took on a lot.
So let's tie together all of what we put together for the last 2 years. And I think my
is that how long we've been recapping this?
It depends on how many fingers you count on.
Feels like 10 to me. Yeah.
My question is, what is the artistic significance of Jeff playing Rick's dad?
I think there's a lot there.
There's more than artistic significance.
Tune into episode 2 from our last season to find out the answer.
Yeah, I think a psychologist could delve into that.
Sigmund Freud has a lot of ideas.
Mm-hmm. Sigmund.
So was
Hamlet.
So you mentioned this was filmed pre Jeff joining the band then?
This was
after? Okay.
Yeah. Kind of during Jeff joining the band.
Yeah.
It depends on how long you consider Jeff's honeymoon period, Yeah. There was a time he had to be with me for a while. After that, I consider it over. That was recently.
That's still going on, I thought.
Hey,
Jeff.
Hi, Liz.
So we may not get to the bottom of this today, but tune into subsequent episodes now on Osiris Network. Big thank you to RJB, president of Osiris Network, for heading down the pathway with us and talking about the last 2 to 5 years of Goose's career, depending on how you count.
Give or take. And obviously we've got a lot planned for the future here with Osiris. Besides our regular episodes, which you should be expecting every other Wednesday, we also have Goose Day Tuesdays, where we will be live talking about the previous week's shows, and we'll also be doing giveaways. We'll be live in chat, so we expect you guys to join us and be paying attention and be participating. So, go gang. So we will see you guys on Tuesdays.
The Great Beyond was produced by Ty Cloy at Jazz Standard in Midtown, New York. On behalf of my co-host, I'd once again like to thank RJ for taking the time, our manager, Kathleen Knight, Mimosas, as always, we're fire, and most of all, you, the listeners, for tuning in. Be sure to catch a ride with us next time down the pathway to the Great Beyond.